I know many of us have been trying to limit our trips to the grocery store and trying to cook with what we have, and so in that vein, I'm going to take you to the depths of my freezer and show you what we're going to cook with today. This little baby is a 5-pound block of Spam that Katie beautifully decorated and wrapped that has been in my freezer for the past 6 months. And to be honest, I don't even remember what's in here. We're going to figure out what to do with it. But first, I decided to give Katie a call and ask her if she could describe what's in here and how she made it.
It is ground raw pork shoulder, ground pork belly, a little bit of bacon, and some cured ham. White pepper, salt, sugar, and a little bit of garlic powder. So you ask your butcher that you got the ground pork butt and the pork belly from, and ask them to ground them, and then put that in the freezer or in the fridge to chill as you're preparing the ham and the bacon. So you cube up the ham, put it in the freezer, and then once it's kind of frozen solid, you can put it in the food processor to grind it yourself and grind up some of the bacon, add some salt and sugar as a mixture is going, and then put it into your chill ground pork belly and ground pork shoulder. And then you can take a little bit, sear it, see if you like the flavor. If not, add more salt or sugar or fish sauce or whatever you want. I end up adding like maybe a tiny pinch of garlic powder. And then you mold it into a loaf pan and tent it with some tin foil. Bake it for 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, and bring it out. It should have shrunk a lot in size because of all the fat, but still be a very much of a loaf shape. And then get something heavy like some cinder blocks or some bricks. Get another loaf pan on top of that Spam, weigh it down, and put it in the fridge for overnight. And then that's going to take out any of the air bubbles and make it very sliceable and loafable like Spam is.
So I chopped it up because I wanted to use all of it, and I definitely didn't want to be eating Spam musubi for the next 8 weeks. So with half of it, we're going to make pappardelle with Spam Ragu. So if you don't have a 5-pound block of Spam in your freezer, I promise you this is totally not a problem. You can still make this and it's going to be delicious. So you're going to start by putting some oil in a heavy bottom pot. How much oil you put really depends on the fat that your meat has. It's important to keep in mind that as it cooks, it's going to release that fat. So you're just putting enough oil to get it started. This is on a medium-low heat, and I'm just going to cook it slow and crisp it up. Meanwhile, I'll get some other things started. I started with the chili garlic paste, so here I'm just cutting up some chilies to make it easier to put in the mortar and pestle. I have about 6 or 7 garlic cloves, and there's a little bit of residual pepper in the bottom of the mortar, but you don't necessarily need that if you don't want to. I'm just gonna add some salt. This is the only salt I'm using in the recipe because my Spam is pretty salty, so just keep that in mind when you're adding salt at this step. I'm going to grind it up till it becomes a paste, and I'll reserve that to use later. Next, I'm just going to get some veg chopped so it's all ready by the time my meat is browned. I'm chopping 1 onion. I like to add carrot to my sauces because I think it adds a little nice sweetness. Now, how's our meat looking? It's still pretty pink and kind of the same volume that we started with, so you're going to keep cooking it until it looks like this. You can see that there's more fat in the bottom of the pan, and it's definitely reduced in size. This took about 30 minutes, but that's because there was a lot of Spam. But things like ground beef or ground pork, anything that's ground is not going to take as long. So to the fat, you're going to add your chili paste from earlier. Let that get really fragrant and start to get brown. And to that, you're going to add your onions and carrot. After they start to get a little color, I deglaze with around half a cup of port wine, but you can use whatever you have. You can even use water. While that's reducing just a tad, I'm going to blend up some tomatoes. Here I used a can. You can use some fresh ones if you have them. And back to our pot. Once the alcohol is evaporated, go ahead and add the tomatoes. And finally, the Spam. I added hot water here because it was pretty thick and I want it to be able to bubble, reduce, and break down the Spam even more. Cover it, bring it to a simmer, and then turn down the heat or move it to a cooler burner, and you want to let it go for 2 to 3 hours, checking it intermittently and adding hot water if you need to. I also added a parm rind and a few bay leaves. At this point it's gotten really thick and lovely, and I decided that I want to blend some of it so that I didn't have little ham chunks floating in my sauce, so I blended about half and then added it back. I also added more water here because, as you can see, it's super thick. When your sauce is close to done, you can start boiling your water for your pasta, add salt, and then add your noodles. I made some fresh pappardelle, which I will show a video for soon. Drain your water and sauce up your pasta.